Let's talk. This is a great time for a conversation. I just finished with some clients that I was seeing on the weekend because I had to take on some weekend clients because I was out sick a couple of weeks ago. So this was my last weekend working with clients to make everybody up. And I have my coffee here in my office, sipping on some coffee. I must say though, my microwave, I think there's something wrong. I might need a new microwave because when I heat up my coffee, the cup gets so hot that if it's a paper cup, the bottom of the cup catches on fire. So I may be in search of a new microwave. But that's a me issue. That's not a you issue. So in today's episode of the Anxiety Relief Revolution, we're going to be talking about how people get change so quickly, and specifically with some of the methods that I use. So let's get started. I just went outside and it's not only raining out, it's also sleeting out. And I'm like, sleet, wonderful. I'm going to go back in my office and I'm going to record an episode of the Anxiety Relief Revolution. And that is why we're here today. Now, a lot of my clients, they get results really, really quickly, specifically when I help them with anxiety. And there are a lot of layers to how I help people, but I've really boiled it down to a 3-step process that is actually really easy to understand. And this is the process that I use with most of my clients most of the time, and it does leave room for flexibility because everybody is different in the way in which they change because of their upbringing, the things that they've gone through, the experiences that have led them up to feeling anxious or doubtful, nervous, worried, or upset, whether it be trauma, whether it be a life-altering thing that happened, or whether it just be like life stress that happens. So there are ways that I help clients through this very, very quickly. Now, I must say though, from a subjective perspective, when clients leave here and they start feeling more confident, they're more productive, they're more in flow states, they're more focused, and the things that used to bother them don't really bother them anymore. So they feel like this sense of inner peace. A lot of their friends and family members who notice this change when they find out that they were working with a person and that I was helping their friend or family member, this is usually what they think we do in a session. Here it is.
Twist the bones and bend the back. Trim him of his baby fat. Give him fur black as black, just like this.
Yes, some people do think that it's all just a little hocus pocus, but it's really more than that. That's not really what we're doing in the session. I mean, I wish it was what we did in the session. But anyway, what I do is I work with people in such a client-centered approach. And I could be working with a person on Zoom. About 85% of the people I work with are on Zoom because I work with people from all around the world. Only 15% are in person, but the work doesn't change. It's all the same. And it's client-centered enough where these are the 3 steps that I bring people through to help them get change very, very quickly. Number 1 is education. So it's not only about me educating the client, it's the client educating me about their problem, how it works, and what they feel led up to it. While they're talking to me about the problem, I go into observation and curiosity mode. So I become very, very curious and I begin observing their body language and also the way they code information. So I look for these unconscious moments because a person's body and a person's responses, those will tell me how they code the problem and how they do the problem. So I can then educate them about their unconscious responses and how to use those differently. I'm also looking for hypnotic moments. So I'm looking for them to go in and out of unconscious response moments so that way I can use them to help the client. So as the client is educating me about their problem, I go into observation mode. I also start educating the client. So it's a two-way street here. So the client's educating me, and then I educate the client. I educate the client on more of a subconscious approach, and I start informing the client about what their problem is really connected to, and also how they can change and what modalities and methods we're going to use. And this gives the client hope. It gives them hope, and it also gives them insight into their own change pattern, because everybody has a slightly different change pattern. But even in a group, we can all tap into the same change pattern and get changes very, very quickly. That's why when I do my groups, now if you're in my Break Free family, which is my weekly support and resolution group, we meet every single week, then you've seen how quickly these changes can happen amongst the group. If you're not, I highly recommend you join my group by going over to my website, dancandell.com. There's an option there to join my group. Very, very inexpensive. It's like $17, less than $17 for a group session. Anyway, education is one, and it's about approaching it with a mindset of curiosity as well, and looking for those unconscious moments, so that way I can use those unconscious moments to help the client heal in their own way. Number two, I teach people how to break out of their own patterns and how to stop those patterns. So I'm teaching techniques that are based in neuroscience, neuroplasticity, self-directed neuroplasticity, self-hypnosis, neurocognitive restructuring. So based on the feedback that I get from the client's unconscious responses, I will know what methods to start using for them to help give them control over the problem and those destructive patterns. So I teach them ways to really get out of their own head, to gain control over those problems, over those thoughts, over those worries or those anxieties or stressors. So they're things that they can do in the moment leading up to stress or anxiety, or to stop stress and anxiety in its path. So it's all about helping my client stop the pattern. So that's step two, is using techniques to teach people how to gain control, to manage those problems in their head, and it's all about stopping the pattern. So that's step two. When a client learns how to stop the pattern, they learn how to gain control, and it gives them a feeling of confidence and also a feeling of inner peace, that they now know how to interrupt those patterns. The more they interrupt the patterns, the less those patterns occur. And number three is I work with a person's subconscious mind. So I tap into their subconscious flow, and I reprogram their mind, and I teach them how to do this themselves as well. So I'm guiding them through it, and we're doing a lot of deeper inner work. A lot of this is based on neurocognitive restructuring, NLP, and hypnosis. We do a lot of deeper inner work that they also might not be able to do on their own. This is why it's really, really important to have someone like myself who is a guide, but also somebody who's very experienced in guiding people through these deep inner processes. I'll give you an example of this. You might be wondering, well, what the heck is an inner process? And while people are going through their own deep inner work, it's changing them on a deep neurological level. And part of this is what I call clearing the underlying emotional core to the problem. So here's what happens. A lot of times when people come in and they have anxiety, it's about reprogramming what may have caused that anxiety, or reprogrammed what might have led up to the anxiety, if they know. If they don't know, that's okay, because there are other inner processes that we have for that. But here's an example. There was a client that I was working with about 3 weeks ago, and it was their third session with me, and they were coming in for 4 sessions. So we really had to wrap up the work that we were doing. So in this session, in the third session, I did some really deep inner work that was a lot of trauma work. So I did a hypnotic process with them that was healing the past, informing the inner child, forgiveness of self and others, and also acceptance. inner love and compassion. And these were all processes that we were able to do all of these processes in one session because they all related, they all connected. Throughout the process, the client started crying. They had an amazing emotional release. I started crying as well. I had an emotional release. But that happens sometimes because we're connected. And after the session, the client left, and now it took about 2 days, they said, because I just had the 4th session with them right before I filmed this video, right before this episode. So it was 3 weeks between sessions. So the client reported, Dan, about a day or two after that session, my mind was like still processing. Like I left feeling a weight was lifted off of my shoulders, but I was still like processing. And that happens sometimes when a client leaves. Sometimes they're still processing and gaining insight, understanding, and inspiration from whatever we did. But the client then said, on day 3 after I left, she said, things really started to connect. Things started to click and fall into place. And I just felt like such a feeling of inner peace and freedom. Like I was finally able to love myself again. And I was finally able to let go of what happened in the past and also admit that I did things that weren't okay. I did things to myself that weren't okay. And that's why that process of forgiveness was so important. And the thing she said, I've done things like this in therapy before, but they never felt deep. And that's why I use a subconscious method of healing, because we can go much deeper where this stuff really makes more of a dramatic impact and more of a transformation than if you were just to do it on a conscious level. So that's why the 3rd step, subconscious healing and reprogramming, is really important. Now, how do I do this? There are a lot of different ways. One is I may use hypnosis or hypnotic processes. 2, I might teach a client how to get into like a zone state in what I call ZTFO, it's zone the F out. There are a few different ways that I do this, but it's all about like helping the client go inside. And the processes that I'm using, many of them are hypnotic in nature. Now, hypnosis isn't controlling the other person. It's teaching the person, assisting the person, and helping them gain control. So some people, they say like, are you doing mind control, voodoo, witchcraft, or manipulation? No, not whatsoever. It's just helping the client tap into the inner resources that they already have available to them. They just don't know how to access them. And I just help a person tap into those and access those. So one of the best, most cost-effective, easiest ways to work with me is to join my group. So if you haven't already, you can join, I call it my Break Free family, my BFF. You can become one of my BFFs, just like hundreds of others, by going to my website, dancandell.com, and joining that community. Also, feel free to head over to my social media as well. You can follow me over there, not just follow the podcast, but you can also follow me over on TikTok as Anxiety Relief Guy, Instagram, Dan Candell, and Facebook, Dan Candell Hypnotist. I have a lot of great programs and stuff like that can really help. I have some links posted in this episode of the podcast, or if you're watching this on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, you'll see some links down pasted below as well. If you're listening to the audio version, make sure you rate and subscribe and leave a review. If you're watching this on the good old YouTubes, make sure you follow, you rate, subscribe as well. So with that, my friends, it was a great pleasure bringing another episode of the Anxiety Relief Revolution to you. As always, be well, do good, be true to who you are, and cheers and happy healing.